Hold for me. I want us to get into the telco conversation, but let me lay a bit of a foundation. And since I've dwelled on the COVID matter with you substantially, I'll start with you, Edem. You've had your concerns about this e-levy and all of that, and some of you shared your thoughts on what the expectancy could be. Well, now we have a study, a survey put together by Imani Africa. But even before we get into that, I remember I took keen interest in this publication in the Business and Financial Times. I just cannot see the date proper, but it's just about a month ago. This is what it revealed. Pre the e-levy, that telcos had lost 300,000 mobile money subscribers in April. This was, and remember, it started on the 1st of May. That 4,000 agents had left the system, that the volume had gone down by 10 million, and that the value of transactions had declined by 2.8 billion. I'm giving this as context to the next leg of the conversation. Now we have Imani Africa telling us that there is an 83% reduction in mobile money transactions. 83%, which would mean only 17% are still on board. And that despite the estimated official attrition rate of 24% for the first 3 to 6 months, as expected, that projection of getting some 4.5 billion Ghana cedis as a revenue target is likely not to be met. Any surprises in there for you? And what do you see happening really, Edem?
Well, thank you. No, there are no surprises here. There were already research from East Africa and elsewhere that showed how the introduction of such policies affected the mobile money markets. I did some work trying to look at the participation of people in policy. I even came up with the National Participation Policy Framework for Ghana. And one of our weakest points, as you know, democracy hinges on 3 key pillars. One of them is participation, another is transparency and accountability, last one is systems and control. In the participation pillar, Ghana has failed to, as it were, put in place permanent platforms, channels, and spaces for persons who are key stakeholders to decision making to be there at the table, so that at the end of the day, the policy we come up with is legitimate. And I've seen this government suffer a lot in some of its high-stake things. I mean, e-levy is one, Ejapa is one, where the participation processes leading to the final policy were not strong enough. And so it's not the quality of the concept. I mean, in my mind, Ejapa, there was value there, but how it ended up and then the mathematics and projections just in terms of assumptions didn't work out with us. I am worried that government needs to take a look at how it gets people on board when it's fashioning these things. It's even constitutional. Article 35(6) is clear that should provide all possible opportunities for people to participate in influencing decision making. So it's not surprising at all, and we are likely to continue facing this if that understanding of how you get people on board to share their ideas, to craft policy that is then owned, and therefore execution becomes easy, is not resolved. And it's unfortunate, but many of us kept asking, this e-levy cannot be the basket that solves our resource envelope challenges. We've got to think beyond that. And hopefully, over the next few months, as the reality sinks in, we'll bring people together again and begin to think through what can we do. Because all of us suffer when the resource envelope is just not there. It means that you have to find other ways of taxing us, and would rather be innovative in coming up with the solutions together with government than to find that, you know, we are being squeezed in areas that would rather not be the places where we want these things to happen. So no surprises here at all, none at all.
All right. Let's give you some snippets of what Imani Africa gave us in that report. When you look at pages 11 and 12, as you can see on your screens, the findings, perspectives on the e-levy. And so people were asked, what type of transaction do you typically carry out with a digital financial services account? And the answer choices ranged from business transactions, payment for goods and services, The response was almost 33%, a 932 total. And mind you, the total number of respondents was 1,677. Then payments for government services, 9.4%. And that is, for example, taxes to the GRA, at the passport office, the DVLA, etc. Then personal use, medical bills, school fees, ordering food, sending money to family. That constituted 55.3%, and others 2.4%. So that is the distribution. But in terms of the conclusions, this is what it evinces. 46.5% with regard to convenience, driving usage, pre and post the e-levy, but with reductions. That is the conclusion there. And then when it comes to mobile money for personal transactions, 55.3%. That is the ratio of personal use to the combined business transactions in almost, that is 2:1. And finally, we can take a look at 83%, which is the reduction in transaction volume. That is overall, the reduction in transaction volume. And that has raised some concerns. So it is noted by Imani Africa that there's a strong consumer backlash and that people are finding alternative means of undertaking financial transactions, and some are using the substitution effect. Again, when you look at the conclusions that are arrived at, and you look at the pool, so alternative means of avoiding the e-levy, that is physical cash, traditional banking, and other loopholes, people are employing that. You also look at 85.9% indicating that they were strongly against or somewhat not in support of the e-levy to start with, 13% being either strongly supported or somewhat supporting the e-levy, while 1.1% remained undecided. But interesting, when you look at the reasons of the proponents versus the opponents, you would see that those who are for are saying it is good because it will raise money for government for development, that is 38.9%, and it will widen the tax base, that is 54.2%. And those against, the point they make that we already have enough taxes, that is 72.6%, and calling for prudent usage as well. And then a further 32% calling for a cutting of the wasteful spending. Those are the dynamics. So I'll come to you as well, Kweku Kwarteng. Does this come as any surprise to you? Because there were those, even in the majority side, who said, look, realistically, looking at the backlash, looking at some comments, will not hit the highest points, the nadir of collection. But 83%, that is massive. Are you surprised?
Well, I don't know whether to be surprised or not. What I can say is that policymakers should not rely on these surveys. We have the real figures.
Did you just say policymakers should not rely on these surveys?
Yes, if I can explain. I mean, if you want to find out, it depends on what you want to find out. If you want to find out what the impact of such a tax measure has been, and the tax is on certain transactions, there's evidence of what the impact has been on those transactions. If you go to the banks, if you go to the telcos, you would see in reality what the impact is. So if I want to find out whether mobile money transactions have been impacted by e-levy, I know where to go to. I'm not going to do a survey. It is not a public.
Where would you go? Where would you go?
I would go to the telcos. And because they are audited for tax purposes, I'll go to the telcos and see a volume of mobile money transactions. I would go to the bank and see whether transfers from individual accounts, which has e-levy, what the volumes have been. And those ones are very easy to check. And so I would know exactly what the impact has been. I mean, surveys like
is that then to question, pardon the interjection once more, is that then to question the credibility of what Imani has put out?
No, I mean, Imani, I do not think intended the outcome of the survey to be taken as the empirical figures of real transactions. I doubt that. I mean, Imani has very good guys in there. I like the work they do very much, and I think Ghana is proud to have them. But I don't think their objective was to say, if you want the volume of mobile money transactions in Ghana, the way to get it is to go and ask people about their expenditure habits and whether they are using or not using e-levy. I'm sure Imani themselves would advise that the way to do it is to go to the telcos and the banks and to find out what the volumes have been.
But you would agree that it gives us the pulse or the temperature of what it could be, what the picture is or could be.
Oh, yes. I mean, it will reflect a certain general view about e-levy. I agree with them, the outcome of the survey, that majority of the people are unhappy with the e-levy. I myself, I am unhappy with the e-levy, even though I was a person whose casting vote actually helped e-levy happen. I'm proud about that. I don't think we have.
So why were you unhappy with the e-levy?
I mean, when I say I'm unhappy because I pay some, and nobody enjoys paying taxes. So I'm one of those. If you ask me in a survey whether I feel good when I pay e-levy, I'll tell you that I don't. But if you ask me whether as a country we needed e-levy at this point in time, I would say yes, and this is the reason. And it's the reason I voted for it. Look, we passed the budget in December. Now, when we passed the budget, government provided for a certain volume of expenditures. We paid the public service workers, we will do this, we will do this. And we were happy to approve those expenditures. And government did indicate in the same budget that I'm going to use these means to raise the money. And government told us that there will be e-levy. How Parliament approved the entire expenditure and said this one here is good, approve it. And you see, members of Parliament and politicians, we don't like fighting against expenditures, because if there's going to be a road to Obuasi and NDC or MPP, you vote against it, you are afraid of what the consequences will be for you. So we are always happy, except those of us who think more public finance management, who are always uncomfortable with expenditures and doing this for the public free and doing this. I never enjoy those things. And I don't think it helps us as a country. But we voted for that because we are politicians and we want our constituents to be happy with that. And then when it came to raising the money, we say, as for an important source of the revenue, we will not approve it. So we could not pass e-levy. So the investor community looked at Ghana and said, these guys, they love the expenditures. Their politicians have approved the expenditures because they want their voters to be happy. Nobody wants to take responsibility for hard decisions. But when it came to raising the money, they are saying that they don't want, so we should go and pay the difference. That gap was what resulted in our downgrade. It resulted in the fall of the city, because as a country, we're saying that we want expenditures, but we don't want to pay for it. And once e-levy got passed, we all saw the relative stability we started seeing in the currency. I am one of those who believe that between even now and the close of the year, government should stop all discretionary expenditure. You cannot stop salaries. You cannot stop some things. But those expenditures that can be suspended, they must be suspended immediately so that we can demonstrate during the media.
So which ones would you have suspended? If you had your way, which ones would you?
For instance, if I have to do road here, I will suspend it. If I have to do this here, also any expenditure, save salaries and the statutory expenditures. You know, the statutory ones are by law, so you cannot freeze it. And then sometimes interest obligations. If you don't pay on time, the penalties and others would make it unreasonable. So I'll look at those basic expenditures. All other expenditures must be frozen so that by the close of the year, Ghana will be seen to be living within its means. We get an upgrade because the downgrade we had in the first quarter of this year has impacted us adversely. We get an upgrade and then we begin to think more clearly. So if e-levy hadn't come, look, before e-levy came, before I say that, before e-levy came, trust me, we were paying e-levy through the back door. Because once the investor community saw that it appears that these guys, they love the expenditures, but they are reluctant to mobilize the revenue, they started walking away with the investment. And if you go to the Bank of Ghana, the rollover applications started reducing. It means investors were disinvesting. They were buying the dollars and leaving the economy. And then the cedi was falling, and people started complaining that we go to the market every day and we are paying more. That was e-levy we were paying through the back door. As soon as the e-levy stabilized and government announced elaborate expenditure cuts, then we saw the relative stability. Look, investors, they don't want you to be spending money you don't have. And so long as you continue to demonstrate that you love the expenditures, you love the asphalt roads, first in the country, everywhere we want asphalt. And we think that somehow it is somebody that will provide it. And then we make all kinds of arguments. We don't want to pay the taxes. In fact, I repeat this call that all those advocating for asset declaration, I support them. I support the fact that the asset declaration regime should be more transparent. I support it wholly. But I think that it must be extended to cover people in the private sector whose incomes and assets are beyond a certain threshold.
Okay. Kweku, I want you to do this for me in about a minute and a half so I can also wrap with Adam Senanu and pick his thoughts on what you've said and what the way forward would be. But if you look at the findings, when you go to page 16, it talks about the coping mechanisms, strategies that people are employing. I want to ask you, what would the government's own coping strategy? You've projected, we're looking at 6.9 billion. Because of the late rollout and, the hobbled approach in Parliament and the start on May the 1st, you brought this down. I remember speaking to Dr. John Kuma, Deputy Finance Minister, who said you'd be expecting anywhere from, let's say, 4.5 to 5 billion, thereabouts, or 5.5 billion. But looking at these figures, what then does it mean if you are woefully unable to meet your target? What would be the implications? And would government then be willing, the finance ministry, you think, to reconsider the percentage? You moved it from 1.75 to 1.5. Would we contemplate then to bring more people in, maybe reduce it to 1%, 0.5%, 0.2%? Just these two dynamics very quickly, and we shall call it a conversation.
Was the question to me, please?
So how would government react?
Was the question, was it to me? I heard you, but is it to me?
Yes, Kweku, that's for you.
Okay, so
just briefly, please, because of time, just briefly.
Yes, my answer is brief. I just think that the government itself should be doing the review, and I'm sure they're doing that. In the media review, we will see how much the revenue shortfall has been, if any. If there is revenue shortfall, I think our response immediately would be to announce the corresponding cut in expenditure so that there will be comfort that these guys, they are not going to spend money they do not have. That is all we should do. As for e-levy going forward, if by the close of the year, government looks at how e-levy is performing and e-levy is not yielding what it expected, government should find out why and try and deal with the results. If at some point, we brought the luxury vehicles levy. At some point, the government realized that it was not bringing in enough. It was becoming like a nuisance tax. Government says I have discontinued. If government assesses it at the end of the year, it is the outcome of the assessment that would inform what to do. At this point, I think it's early days yet. Let's wait and let the year close and let's see the assessment. But immediately, at the risk of repeating myself, if in the media review next month, close of next month, government discovers that there's revenue shortfall, I will be looking to see expenditure cuts. And maybe as members of parliament and maybe the political class, we should lead the way by taking more cuts in our benefits and all that. I'll welcome that.
Kweku Kwarteng, it's been very good having you. Thank you so much for joining the conversation. We're immensely grateful for your time. Let me wrap with Adam Senanu. Adam, your summary thoughts.
Well, I think that it's important not to be too focused on the public financial management aspects of these discussions, because what you then do is that you alienate the people and how they are feeling. I think the Imani report is a very critical report. They did not seek to look at the quantum of finances or mobile money. You're looking at the volume of transactions. These are indicators of what is going on. And I think that that 83% reduction in transaction volume is a very telling figure. Probably the next level they can consider is to see whether they can collect data from the telcos and the banking sector to look at the quantum itself. But very likely, the indicators are clear that there's been a significant reduction, and government must begin to rethink the way forward on this if we are to make sure that our economy does not suffer some more, serious damages as we go ahead.
Adam, thank you so much for joining the conversation. Adam Senano is an anti-graft campaigner. He joined the conversation. Thank you. We also had Member of Parliament for Boise West and Chairperson of the Finance Committee of Parliament, Honorable Kweku Kwarteng, joining the conversation. When we